Good morning. Happy Thursday. This is the Coffee and Coaches conference call. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and Dr. Mike. It is perfect as usual. That's one of my pet peeves with the lighter construction shoes is that you're like when you do change direction, you have to slide inside the shoe because the upper gives way, or you just slide into the toe box, right?
Yep.
Or if you do get anything, with anything with a good, midfoot construction, then the rear foot is mush, and so nothing really flips my skirt at this point. The thing that you want to be really, really careful of is that you don't try to use a straight ahead shoe for your agility based activities. So like a running style shoe is a bad idea. And I think there's probably too many people that try to get away with that. They're just not constructed to go side to side. When you have a high heel to toe ratio, or you have a sort of like the base of the shoe is widest at the bottom and then it narrows as it goes towards the heel. It's like all you got to do is hit the outside edge of that shoe and you're looking at an ankle sprain. Do you guys remember the pump shoes? Did they have those when you were kids?
I'm not as old as you, but yes, the pumps.
Okay.
Come on.
Well, so I was already old by the time the pump shoes came out, and so I wasn't attracted to them because I didn't care whether I could dunk or not, but the nice thing about them is that they did give you that nice little secure feeling of that sense of the shoe around your foot. Yeah.
So what do you think about like these minimalist shoes then that have like pretty much nothing, and it's just the foot in a casing, I guess you could call it. Like a sausage
foot.
Yeah.
I think you have to earn them. I think I just think that you that's not for everyone, and there's like a sect of people that they'll be perfectly fine with that.
Earn them in what way?
Well, you have to be adaptable, right? That's a very adaptable foot.
Discuss like arm positioning using like the flexion arc. In general, you kind of talk about like reaching or how you would essentially utilize that to gain something that you're looking for in exercise.
Okay, so what do you want to acquire or reacquire?
But yeah, so like let's say you're trying to get like lower thoracic expansion.
Okay.
Where like how would you place your arm like to drive something in exercises or something like that? And would you reach? Would you move? Would you have a extra rotation aspect, internal rotation aspect, like kind of just overall what your thought process besides just like 0-60 and that sort of jazz?
Okay, so let's think about. So you're talking about the posterior lower. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a couple of ways that I can go about this. I know that I need to expand the backside of the rib cage below the level of the shoulder blade, right? So that is emphasized in the early phase of raising the arm up from your side, right? So in like what we would say, if we had to pick a number, we would say that first 60 degrees is going to be that influence, right? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So anything where I position my arm in that relative angle, okay, is going to help promote that expansion. So I have to have a compressive strategy anteriorly to move the fluid volume posteriorly. Okay. So it like just take like a high to low kind of a cable press concept. As I'm pressing down and reaching, I would have to compress anteriorly to accomplish that task, which would promote the posterior expansion. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's one strategy. The other would be to create a compressive strategy where I don't want the ear to go, right? Would be through that middle range. So you think about like if I wanted to compress the dorsal rostral area around the scapula, I would position that arm through that roughly the 90 degree of shoulder flexion range, right? Plus or minus about 30 degrees. And that will create, like I said, that upper posterior compression, but what it doesn't do, it doesn't compress the posterior lower. So now I'm using another strategy that will block the expansion in one area and try to promote it in another. So there's multiple ways to go about this.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes. Like if you're
Okay.
doing,
Go ahead.
you had mentioned also, I guess with this, in one of the videos about the old school, open close chain external rotation exercises and
Yeah.
how it kind of helps to restore. If you're doing something like a positioning of those sorts with like an isometric, either internal or external, would that help drive one thing based on the actual like superficial strategies within the shoulders, like the cuff activity? Would that help kind of pull, would you say, like the scapula off the rib cage to drive a certain activity? So if I was in the 0 to 60 range and I were to perform like a ISO ER with some breathing, would that help open up even more because the rotator cuff muscle is going to be pulling scap away from the thorax?
Right. So the way that I perceive those exercises is not relative to the humeral motion, but what's happening between the humerus and the scapula. So if you're doing like the traditional external rotation kind of a thing, or as you described, the isometric in that lower 60-degree range, as you promote the external rotation at the humerus and scapula, the scapula are going to turn, right? So it's not the humerus that would be necessarily turning, but the scapula would turn and create space between them, between the two scapula, right? And so that would allow that posterior expansion to occur.
Bill, have you played around much with the angle of shoulder flexion in like the single arm like cable pec fly exercises a lot lately?
What do you mean by?
Like to influence where you're gonna, I guess one side versus the other, where you're gonna move air better in those type of exercises?
Yes. Yes. Very important. Here you go. Very important for creating end range rotations. Okay. Because end range rotation is using a compensatory strategy to finish the turn, right? So the more extreme and the more forceful or the tighter the turn that has to take place. So when you think about like a change of direction, a very, very aggressive change of direction, when they're coming out of the cut to get the last bit of turn to reorient the body into a straight line, that requires so we don't talk about this very much, but the scapular retraction towards the spine has to occur to create enough velocity out of the cut. If you don't do that, you don't get enough expansion to redirect into a straight line. And so when you talk about you're talking about like the single arm kind of a cable thing. Yeah. So the end range position of that is the position that you're going to use to produce the last element of turn to redirect out of a cut. But again, if you just watch the arm position, you'll see them trying to move the scapula to create the turn, because the scapula are those paddles that block things really, really well because they're very solid. They create a compressive strategy. And then if you know that if somebody's trying to retract their scapula to make a turn, you know they're trying to drive expansion on the other side. Question is do they even have expansion on the other side?